Okay, so this is the practice test 3 for digital version of SAT. So starting from the writing and language or grammar section, we can see that again, based on the answer choices, A is a verb, or actually it could be a past participle because they look identical. So we're not sure yet. But we know B is a verbal, right? It is the same as after providing, so it's not a verb. C, to provide, is also a verbal. It is infinitive. And D, providing, is a verbal. It is either a gerund or a present participle. So if we take a look here, what does which tell us? Which is called a relative pronoun, and it starts an adjective clause, and we have established that an adjective clause, even though it's not a sentence, a clause has subject verb. So our subject which needs to be followed by the verb, which is a provided. Okay, and
Yay!
good, you got it right. Okay, number 21. So what is this testing you? Well, when you look at A, B, C, D, one is comma fanboy, some has punctuation, some doesn't. So right away you should know, okay, so I have to read from beginning all the way to period. And that is actually a very long sentence. So what do we do? Well, we can always start by crossing out the phrases that we don't want, right? To make it easier for us. So typically, underlines, scribbles, and notes, compound subject, left in the margins. This is a participle phrase. Remember, this is not a verb, so don't confuse it with a verb. Cross out by a former owner, that is a prepositional phrase, and the verb is lower a book's value. So we have a complete sentence here. All right. And then when is a subordinator, meaning it makes a clause dependent. So when the former owner is a famous poet, cross out like Walt Whitman, prepositional phrase. Such markings, which is our subject, cross out participle phrase known as marginalia, can be a gold mine. So now we know that we have two complete sentences because we have independent, dependent, and then independent. So that means I have to have a period function in the underlying part. And as we know the formula, comma, fanboys equals semicolons equals period. So the answer would be A, comma, but. Okay, so number 22 will be the same. You see comma or and or period or no punctuation. So we do it exactly the same way as we did 21. Okay, so let's start off by crossing the things we don't want. After that is a subordinator like when, so this is a dependent clause. United Kingdom began rolling out taxes equivalent, cross out prepositional phrase, to a few cents on single-use plastic grocery bags in 2011. And then we have another clause. Plastic bag consumption decreased, cross out by up to 90%. And then such taxes, we have another clause. Such taxes are subject to what economists call the rebound effect. And I'm going to stop at colon. But now we know we have two complete sentences, right? Because this is dependent plus independent plus independent. So I need a period function. And that is why C is the only possible answer. Okay. And number 23, same thing. This is just punctuation. And this is so long, so I'm going to start from the beginning of the actual sentence. So I'm going to start from specifically. Whatever comes before, irrelevant. Specifically, an extra leap second, cross out the parentheses because that's non-essential information. So leap second is added. That is our verb. Whenever is actually a subordinator. So it makes the clause dependent. So I'm going to write SUB here. So whenever time, cross out based on the planet's rotation, that's participle phrase, lags. So now we have one sentence that is independent plus dependent because whenever is a subordinator. I cannot use period function. Semicolon equals period. So right away you should know B and C are out because they're interchangeable, meaning they are both wrong. And a general punctuation rule for adverbial clause is when the independent clause comes before the dependent clause, you do not need comma. Whereas if the dependent clause comes before the independent clause, you need an introducer comma. So in this case, we have ID. So D would be our answer. So far, so good?
Yes.
All right.
I got this one wrong, but I got the others correct.
Very good. Okay, so 24.
I wrote C.
Oh, okay. Yeah, just remember whenever is a subordinator, subordinating conjunction, like because, before, after, since, it makes a clause dependent. So it is not a complete sentence on its own. All right, and number 24, right? This is the same thing like we've done. All verbs, actually. So what you have to do is, when you see they're all verbs, number one, check your subject. Is it singular? Is it plural? Number two, you can check your tense. And last but not least, maybe there is active voice versus passive voice, right? So let's start from beginning of the sentence. So Bengali author Toru Dutt, a sheaf gleaned in French fields. So the book title is our subject, right? Because we know apostrophe S, that is just adjective function. We're going to cross that out. And then what is a volume of English translations of French poems? That is our non-essential appositive, right? Modifying our subject. So really, our subject is singular because the title of a work is always singular. Now, by process of elimination, B, C, D are out. They are all plural. And the answer would be A. Okay? And
I got it correct.
Very good.